The galaxy does not whisper, it roars, a universe in constant agony where stars burn out and civilizations crumble in silence. You stand on a world that will die by the hands of time, of alien cunning, of men who were guarded like armor. In this galaxy, hope is a currency long spent and survival is an act of quiet defiance. You feel the weight of eternity pressing down, not as expectation, but as inevitability. Every corner of space hums with predators. Tyrannid swarms that consume without reason, Necron legions that remember nothing but their own perfection, Eldari who dance on the edge of madness, with precision you cannot comprehend, and humanity. Humanity endures, not because it is wise, but because it refuses to admit the scale of its vulnerability. The Imperium stretches like a scar across the stars, a patchwork of faith and fear, of order held together by blood and repression. And at its frontiers stand the warriors of the Death Watch, the silent arbiters between existence and oblivion. You do not fight for glory. You do not fight for honor. You fight because someone must. Time becomes a blur. Battles overlap. Death and survival lose distinction. You carry memories of a life that feels half-remembered, rituals of brotherhood that no longer anchor you, and the knowledge that in every alien face you strike, you glimpse the possibility of what humanity could become, or what it could already be. This is not a story of heroes. It is a story of endurance, of inevitability, of the quiet, grinding machinery of war that shapes the galaxy in ways no one dares to record. And if you are to understand even a fragment of this universe, you must see it through the eyes of those who have become instruments of survival, who have surrendered identity for function, who have learned that in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, there is only war and watching. The galaxy is a wound, a vast, unhealing scar of fire, steel, and blood. Stars are born and die in silence, yet their light illuminates nothing but endless conflict. Worlds burn, empires crumble, entire civilizations vanish, and time does not mourn their passing. This is the universe humanity inherited, not as a gift, but as a battlefield preordained for suffering. From the moment of its inception, the galaxy has been a place where hope is fragile, where survival is provisional, and where life itself is measured against the relentless calculus of extinction. There is no mercy here, no reprieve. Every act of creation is shadowed by the certainty of destruction. Even the most isolated planet nestled in a forgotten system is connected to a web of violence that stretches across light years. This is a universe that is already lost. Not to a single enemy, not to one catastrophe, but to the inevitability of war itself. The stars do not shine. They glare cold and indifferent, reflecting the futility of resistance. The races of the galaxy fight, struggle, and scheme, yet their victories are fleeting. Every gain is temporary. Every achievement is provisional. The galaxy remembers nothing but the outcome, and even that is often rewritten by the victors, or erased entirely by forces too vast to perceive. Humanity, like every other species, is caught in this endless cycle. The Imperium rises, falls, survives, but never truly thrives. Worlds are stitched together with fear and fanaticism, yet they are fragile, always one step from annihilation. Civilizations built on centuries of labor and sacrifice vanish in a single orbit. And still life endures as if the galaxy itself insists that something, anything, must persist. The universe is not a stage for heroes. It does not reward valor, wisdom, or sacrifice. It rewards endurance, the patient, the adaptable, the unfeeling. Every empire, every faction, every warrior who believes in destiny or justice is doomed to confront the stark reality. Existence in the galaxy is a series of compromises made with inevitability. Victory is not won through brilliance. It is survived through calculation. Here, even perception is a weapon. The knowledge that everything is fleeting shapes decisions, alliances, and strategy. Every soldier, every fleet commander, every warlord understands, sometimes consciously, sometimes instinctively, that no victory lasts, no empire endures, and no soul truly rests. The galaxy does not forgive. It does not remember. It simply continues. And in this continuation, humanity finds its first truth. To exist is to fight is to endure, and to endure is to accept that the universe has already decided the stakes, and that in the end, survival is the only form of triumph worth noting. War is not an event in the galaxy. It is a constant, a pulse that drives existence itself, beating through the arteries of star systems, echoing across eons. Peace is a myth whispered by worlds that have yet to burn. by civilizations that have yet to learn the cost of existence. In the 41st millennium, the galaxy does not sleep. It does not pause. Every orbit, every star, every shadowed void is a theater of potential conflict. The reasons for this perpetual war are older than memory. Empires rise and fall, not because of the strength of their enemies, but because the galaxy itself conspires against permanence. Life is expansion, adaptation, and competition, natural forces writ large across the cosmos. Humanity is merely one actor among countless others, striving for dominance, survival, and comprehension in a system that grants none of them freely. Xenos races are the catalysts of conflict, each embodying the extremes of survival. The cunning Eldari strike with precision, manipulating events across centuries to preserve their dwindling existence. The Necron awaken from their tomb worlds, relentless and unfeeling, erasing life with the patience of the dead. The Tyranids consume relentlessly, a biological inevitability that moves without purpose other than the continuation of hunger. To encounter any of these is to face forces that see time and life through lenses alien to human comprehension. Yet, humanity is not blameless. It is expansionist, unyielding, and rigid in its dogma. The Imperium itself spreads like a contagion across the stars, guided by faith as much as strategy, crushing worlds to unify them under the Emperor's vision. Every conquest invites resistance. Every act of consolidation invites reprisal. In this galaxy, conflict is not accidental. It is inevitable, coded into the very structure of existence. War breeds war. Each victory generates new adversaries. Each defeat creates lessons for enemies to exploit. Alliances are fragile and temporary. Betrayal is as predictable as sunrise. Even within humanity, factions vie for supremacy. Adeptus Astartes chapters, Mechanicus enclaves, planetary governors, rogue elements, all pursue goals that overlap yet conflict, creating internal wars within a civilization that cannot withstand complacency. Resources are finite, ambition infinite. Planets teem with life, minerals, and energy, yet their abundance is never enough to satiate the demands of empires that span light years. Competition over these resources drives skirmishes that escalate into campaigns, and campaigns that escalate into wars spanning millennia. In the darkness of space, every system is a strategic puzzle, every fleet a piece in a game whose rules are survival and nothing more. In this galaxy, peace is not absence of war. It is merely a pause between inevitable clashes. Every decision, every maneuver, every deployment is made under the understanding that tomorrow will bring new enemies, new catastrophes, and new conflicts. There is no morality here, only consequence. No diplomacy endures, only strategy. Every action carries a shadow, and every shadow hides an opponent waiting, calculating, preparing. This is why the galaxy is always at war. It is not a failure of governance, nor a flaw of leadership. It is the natural state of existence. Humanity fights not because it chooses to, but because it must, because survival demands vigilance, aggression, and the willingness to commit atrocities before necessity calls. Every battle fought, every world conquered or lost is a reminder of the universe's indifference. Every act of valor is a small defiance against inevitability. And so, the war never ends. It only deepens, layers of blood and fire stacking across centuries, shaping the galaxy into a crucible where only the relentless survive and only the ruthless endure. The universe does not offer mercy. It does not reward heroes. It only endures, and in enduring, it forces all who dwell within it to either adapt, perish, or be consumed. Humanity, in its audacity, reached for the star. What began as scattered tribes on a single world became an empire spanning thousands of planets, bound together not by diplomacy, but by the iron will of a singular vision, survival, expansion, and dominion. This was humanity's greatest achievement, the forging of a civilization so vast, so complex, that it could endure where others would crumble. The stars were no longer distant points of light. They were markers of power, ambition, and legacy. Yet greatness carries its shadow. In the very act of ascending, humanity sowed the seeds of its own fragility. Every world claimed, every system conquered, introduced new responsibilities, new vulnerabilities. Empires are measured not by their triumphs, but by the threats they attract. And in reaching for the stars, humanity became irresistible, visible to forces it could neither fully comprehend nor fully control. The Imperium of man as it came to be is a paradox. It is a monument to human resilience, yet a prison of human fear. Its institutions enforce unity across light years, yet its rigidity ensures stagnation. Its armies conquer, but its bureaucracy suffocates initiative. Humanity's success is absolute in scope, yet every victory is haunted by inefficiency, betrayal, and the constant drip of existential threat. The Emperor of Mankind, the architect of this grand design, embodies both triumph and catastrophe. He is genius and God, savior and oppressor. Through him, humanity achieved coherence, purpose, and the creation of the Space Marines, beings designed to endure, to dominate, to secure the survival of their species in a galaxy that delights in extinction. But in attempting to perfect humanity, the Emperor imposed limits. Dogma over freedom, obedience over innovation, survival over hope. Humanity was secured, yet humanity's soul was compromised. The Great Crusade illustrates this duality. Planets were liberated or subjugated depending on perspective. Civilizations either integrated into the Imperium or erased to prevent rebellion. Every victory was precise, brutal, and total. The scale of the achievement is almost incomprehensible. Trillions of lives touched, systems mapped, order imposed on chaos. Yet in this extraordinary ambition lies the seed of ruin. The greater the reach, the higher the cost, the more fragile the structure beneath the facade of control. Every expansion, every conquest, every act intended to preserve humanity introduced complexity that could not be contained. Loyalty fractured, sects emerged, cults whispered heresy, machines grew sentient in dangerous ways. The galaxy teems with life, and each thread of life introduces risk, error, and unpredictability. Humanity's greatest achievement became a paradoxical threat to itself, a civilization so vast it cannot possibly be fully controlled, so ambitious it guarantees perpetual conflict, so grand it ensures its own myth becomes a prison, and yet it is awe-inspiring. Nay, to traverse a star system claimed by the Imperium is to witness human ingenuity in staggering scale, fortresses orbiting planets like gargantuan crowns, fleets stretching across light years, weapons capable of annihilation that challenge comprehension. Humanity, against all odds, commands the galaxy. It survives where others perish, endures where others are forgotten. But the mistakes are hidden in plain sight. To ensure survival, humanity sacrifices freedom. To command the stars, it enforces rigidity. To prevent chaos, it cultivates fear. Every act of preservation carries a moral debt, a cost measured not in resources, but in the slow erosion of humanity's spirit. What was gained in scope is lost in intimacy. What was achieved in reach is forfeit in essence. This is the duality of the human empire. Glory inseparable from horror. Progress inseparable from stagnation. Survival inseparable from the ever-looming specter of annihilation. Humanity thrives in the galaxy because it dominates. But it dominates because it fears extinction. Its greatest achievement is also its greatest mistake. The Imperium exists to endure, yet the very structures that preserve it ensure that it can never breathe freely, never reflect, never evolve without courting destruction. And so the galaxy is caught in the consequence of ambition, a civilization that is both monumental and fragile, brilliant and cursed, victorious and forever on the edge of collapse. Every star system under humanity's control is both a triumph and a warning. Survival demands sacrifice, and the price is perpetual vigilance, total obedience, and the slow corrosion of the self. He is the architect of humanity's destiny, yet his shadow stretches farther than any empire could measure. The Emperor of Mankind, immortal, brilliant, and unknowable, stands at the apex of human ambition. To some, he is salvation incarnate, the guiding hand that pulled humanity from the brink of extinction. To others, he is a tyrant whose vision of order smothered freedom, whose genius created a cage for the very species he vowed to protect. In the annals of human history, he is more than a man. He is myth, legend, and doctrine fused into flesh and willpower. He commanded the Great Crusade with a clarity unmatched in the galaxy, uniting a fractured humanity under a single banner, eradicating threats, and forging legions of superhuman warriors. The Space Marines, to enforce his design. Through his will, humanity became both unstoppable and disciplined, a force capable of imposing order upon chaos itself. Yet genius is never pure. In his drive to preserve humanity, the Emperor imposed a rigid hierarchy, a doctrine of obedience that stripped agency from those who would inherit his vision. He prioritized survival over empathy, unity over individuality, obedience over morality. The Imperium, vast and unyielding, bears his mark in every policy, every fortress, every sanctioned atrocity. Every act meant to secure survival also exacts a cost, a slow, grinding corrosion of freedom and creativity, an endless debt paid in human souls. The Emperor's creation of the Primarchs, the 20 sons of his genetic mastery, was an act of both brilliance and hubris. Each one embodied an aspect of his will, a facet of humanity he wished to perfect. Yet perfection is brittle. Scattering them across the stars introduced unpredictability. Some thrived, becoming pillars of loyalty. Others faltered, consumed by ambition, resentment, or corruption. In attempting to control fate itself, the Emperor set in motion the seeds of rebellion, culminating in the Horus Heresy, a war that shattered the galaxy and nearly destroyed his empire. He is worshipped as God, yet his divinity is ambiguous. The Golden Throne sustains him, keeping him alive but immobile, a living relic whose mind steers the Imperium through psychic will alone. To the billions of souls who kneel, he is omnipotent. To the few who remember him as flesh and blood, he is tragic, infallible yet incapable of intervention, a ruler who saw too far, calculated too much, and now waits, imprisoned by the very machine of his own making. Every choice he made carries weight beyond comprehension. The creation of the Adeptus Astartes, the consolidation of human worlds, the establishment of the Mechanicum, the sanctioning of eternal war. They are triumphs and curses intertwined. The galaxy thrives because of his vision, yet it suffers because of its execution. To be saved by the Emperor is to be bound in chains of necessity, to owe survival to calculation, strategy, and cold, unyielding logic. Even now, his presence is both guardian and warning. To serve the Imperium is to serve him, yet to question him is unthinkable. His legacy is the crucible in which humanity's endurance is forged. A civilization of unyielding strength and perpetual fear, of devotion entwined with suppression, of salvation married to catastrophe. And so the question persists, whispered in the shadows of every fortress and corridor. Is he savior or catastrophe? Perhaps he is both. Perhaps greatness can never exist without cost, and perfection can never escape its shadow. The Emperor of mankind is a paradox made flesh, the hand that preserves life, the mind that shapes destiny, and the ruler whose vision will never be questioned, because to question it is to court annihilation. He is the axis upon which the Imperium turns. He is the anchor in a galaxy adrift in blood and fire, and he is above all a reminder that the line between salvation and tyranny is drawn not in intention, but in consequence. The galaxy was fractured, a scatter of human worlds lost to ignorance, superstition, and war. Civilizations rose and fell without memory. Star systems fought against each other, against alien predators, and against the void itself. Humanity teetered on the edge, clinging to survival in pockets of light, while the dark swelled around them. Into this chaos stepped the Emperor of mankind, a figure both divine and terrifying, bearing the promise of order. The Great Crusade was not merely a campaign, it was an imperative. It was the act of a mind unwilling to accept weakness, a vision of humanity united under a single, unbreakable will. Every world brought into the Imperium was a triumph of strategy, force, and calculation, a step toward the creation of a galaxy-spanning civilization that could withstand the darkness. The Great Crusade did not proceed with subtlety. Planets were assimilated, not always peacefully. Resistance was met with overwhelming force, yet it was tempered with logic. Worlds that accepted unity prospered, integrated into a vast network of administration, industry, and defense. Worlds that resisted were broken, and their lessons preserved as warnings for others. Survival was the measure of success, not morality. Every conquest was both a necessity and a lesson. The galaxy would obey, or it would perish. At the heart of the crusade were the Space Marines, the Emperor's angels of war. Each Primarch commanded his legion with precision and doctrine, bringing discipline to chaos. They were the instruments of his vision, not merely soldiers but architects of human destiny, executing campaigns with efficiency, adaptability, and terrifying effectiveness. Where diplomacy failed, bolter fire succeeded. Where hesitation might have invited extinction, decisive action was absolute. Yet the crusade was not only about battle, it was about integration, melding human worlds into a single civilization capable of coordinated thought, resource sharing, and defense against threats no single planet could withstand. The Emperor's strategies were meticulous. Warp routes were secured, strategic strongholds established. Communications networks spanned hundreds of light years, ensuring that no isolated rebellion could endure long. Civilization became a machine, precise, ordered, unstoppable. But the cost of unity was profound. Worlds lost autonomy. Cultures were reshaped to fit an Imperium-wide framework. Heroes of local myth became relics of history, their stories curated or erased to ensure the primacy of a single narrative, obedience to the Emperor and the Imperium. Individuality was sacrificed for cohesion. Freedom became conditional. The galaxy learned quickly that survival came at the price of submission. The scattered Primarchs, intended to be flawless extensions of the Emperor's will, began to display differences, philosophies, temperaments, ambitions that diverged from the original plan. These divergences would later fester into betrayal. But in the moment, the Crusade pressed forward, unstoppable, driven by vision and certainty. The Great Crusade was a symphony of order imposed on chaos, a relentless march through space and time. Every engagement reinforced the principle that humanity could only survive through strength, that unity was not an ideal, but an obligation. The galaxy, once fragmented and weak, was now an extension of the Emperor's mind, a single organism, coordinated, disciplined, and prepared to confront threats no isolated world could hope to repel. And yet, even within this triumph, the seeds of future disaster were sown. Absolute control breeds resentment. Absolute obedience breeds questions that cannot be asked aloud. The foundations of the Imperium were laid not only in conquest, but in fear, dependence, and the subtle erosion of choice. Every victory carried the shadow of the Horus Heresy, a catastrophe waiting patiently in the wings, birthed by the very mechanisms that had brought unity to the stars. The Great Crusade did not merely conquer the galaxy, it reshaped what it meant to be human. Survival became intertwined with obedience. Strength was equated with compliance. Heroes were measured by their contribution to the Imperium, not their individuality. In every system, on every world, humanity learned a lesson as enduring as it was terrifying. The price of unity is the surrender of self, and the galaxy remembers only those who survive under the weight of an unyielding order. The Emperor's vision was absolute, and the Crusade was its execution. Each battle, each alliance, each subjugated world was a note in a grand composition that spanned stars. Yet in the quiet corners of the galaxy, in the hearts of those who endured, the question they are called angels, warriors of humanity, but the name is a lie. The Space Marines are more than soldiers. They are weapons, born of science, genrecraft, and obsession. Each one is forged from human flesh and spirit, but remade into something that no longer belongs to the weak or the mortal. They are angels only in the sense that they bring judgment, not salvation. From the moment of selection, potential is stripped of choice. Adolescents are taken from their worlds and subjected to the crucible of transformation. Seed implants, chemical induction, surgical augmentation, every process designed to ensure that fear, doubt, and mortality are extinguished. Bones are reinforced, muscles enhanced, senses heightened, reflexes accelerated. Yet as the body becomes more than human, the mind becomes something else entirely. A vessel for obedience, a container for duty, a mind that calculates survival and extermination without question. Space Marines are trained in the art of war before they can understand mercy. Their loyalty is to the Imperium, their faith to the Emperor, but their hearts, those remnants of humanity that survive the process, are instruments to be played, not voices to be heard. Compassion is a liability, hesitation is deadly. Sentiment is a flaw that can spread like infection through a battlefield. Every warrior carries the burden of knowing that every life saved is a choice weighed against the countless others who will perish. And yet, atrocity is not cruelty, it is precision. To the Space Marine, the act of annihilation is an extension of duty. Planets are cleansed, heretics purged, Xenos exterminated, not for vengeance, not for glory, but because efficiency demands it. They have no illusion of heroism, no belief that their deeds will be celebrated in the sunlight. There is only the mission and the unforgiving calculus of survival. Within their ranks, individuality is a faint echo. Names matter less than designations. Rank and specialization define existence. Breachers, tacticians, devastators, roles take precedence over personality. A Marine becomes the embodiment of his chapter's doctrine, a living tool honed to reflect centuries of combat experience. Every strike is calculated. Every decision is informed by instinct honed beyond human comprehension. Yet even as the Space Marines act as instruments of the Imperium, there is poetry in their design. They are terrifying in symmetry, terrifying in purpose. Their armor, black, green, or gold depending on chapter, tells stories in glyphs and sigils. Bolters roar with the finality of judgment. Chainswords devour resistance as easily as the void devours light. They are angels only because angels are meant to terrify, to deliver absolution through fire and steel. But what is most disturbing is the mind beneath the armor. Space Marines are conditioned to think like war itself. They anticipate, adapt, and act with preternatural understanding of tactics, psychology, and biology. Each battle is a lesson, each opponent a variable to be neutralized. They learn to anticipate betrayal, to detect hesitation, to sense weakness before it manifests. And in this, they are not merely warriors. They are predators trained to kill without remorse, guided by doctrine that elevates survival above morality. This is the paradox of the Space Marine. They are humanity's greatest protectors and humanity's most terrible threat. They fight to preserve civilization, yet they are instruments of absolute violence, capable of acts that would horrify even the most hardened imperial citizen. In every engagement, they balance on the knife edge between preservation and annihilation, a line drawn by necessity, sharpened by duty. They are angels made for atrocity, and in their wings of ceramite and Jeanseed, the galaxy learns the cost of survival. Each victory is paid for in blood, each campaign etched into the conscience of a being who feels too little, yet knows too much. They are designed to endure, to strike, to dominate, but they are also designed to witness, to understand the consequences of absolute war, and in that understanding, there is a shadow, the faint echo of the human they once were, now drowned beneath the weight of purpose. Every Space Marine is a paradox, protector and executioner, savior and horror. They are the sharpened edge of the Emperor's will, the living instruments of the Imperium's doctrine. They exist so humanity may endure, yet in their perfection lies a reminder. Survival does not demand mercy. Survival demands sacrifice, sometimes of world, sometimes of innocence, and always of the self. They were meant to be gods among men, yet they were born to fraction. The Primarchs, 20 superhuman sons of the Emperor, were not created to succeed, but to test the boundaries of ambition, loyalty, and the Imperium itself. Each one was a living legend, a blueprint for a perfect general, a strategist, a warrior, and yet perfection carried a hidden curse. The seed of failure was embedded in their very design. Before they walked the stars, the Primarchs were scattered across the galaxy by forces that even the Emperor could not fully control. Planets untouched by his influence became crucibles, shaping the children in ways he never intended. Some grew in deserts where survival demanded cunning over strength. Others were nurtured in empires of decadence, where intellect outshone instinct. Each upbringing created divergence, a deviation from the vision of unity the Emperor sought. The perfect sons became something else, mirrors reflecting humanity's infinite variability, capable of greatness, yet vulnerable to flaw. And flaw is the greatest danger to perfection. When the Emperor recovered each Primarch, he did not find angels. He found individuals whose personalities had been molded by the harsh truths of the worlds that raised them. Lorgar, the spiritualist, questioned authority even as he embraced divinity. Horus, the favored son, carried both loyalty and ambition that would one day ignite the galaxy. Fulgrim, sanguineous and Ferrus Menace, each carried brilliance entwined with shadow, strength twined with hubris. They were made to lead, yet their very nature contained the seeds of rebellion. Each Primarch became the patriarch of a Space Marine legion, a living embodiment of doctrine and philosophy. Their presence elevated men into superhuman soldiers, guiding them through campaigns that reshaped the stars. They taught strategy, honor, and the weight of command. But they also taught lessons no human could bear: the value of sacrifice, the inevitability of betrayal, and the cost of ambition unchecked. The tragedy of the Primarchs lies not in their failure alone, but in the inevitability of it. They were designed to bear the burden of divinity while remaining tethered to mortality, a contradiction that no being could reconcile without tearing itself apart. Each success carried temptation, each victory carried hubris, and in that tension, history found its crucible. Some became saints, others demons. Some inspired loyalty, others rebellion. Horus, the greatest of them all, became the instrument through which the Emperor would understand the fragility of his vision. His fall was not an accident. It was the culmination of a system designed for greatness and human error. The Primarchs, though godlike, were never intended to be flawless. They were fathers forged to fail, and in their failure, the galaxy burned. The Space Marines inherited this duality. They followed leaders who were icons in contradictions, paragons in warnings. They learned that greatness is inseparable from danger, that loyalty is never absolute, and that survival demands choices no human should endure. The Primarchs were more than warriors. They were living tests, and their legacies were riddled with both triumph and catastrophe. To study the Primarchs is to study inevitability. They embody the paradox of Warhammer 40K itself. The pursuit of perfection breeds both salvation and ruin, and even the children of gods are bound by the flaws of the universe they seek to dominate. Each Primarch stands as a reminder that the galaxy is not shaped by ideals alone, but by the consequences of ambition unrestrained, and by the shadow cast by those who were meant to guide humanity, yet instead became warnings etched in blood and steel. The warp, vast and infinite, is the medium through which chaos moves. It is a realm of pure emotion, of thought made real, where time is fluid and logic bends like a dying reed. Within it dwell entities older than humanity itself, the chaos gods. God. Khorne, the Lord of Violence, hungers for blood yet reflects humanity's rage. Tz'Zens, architect of change, manipulates destinies and mirrors the cunning of minds that scheme endlessly. Nurgle, bringer of decay, embodies inevitability and despair. Slaanesh, predator of excess, echoes ambition and desire unchecked. Each god is an idea made flesh, each demon a lesson in the cost of surrendering to impulse. Chaos is intimate. It does not attack with armies alone. It reaches into the mind. Every human thought is a doorway, every doubt a crack in the armor. To the unwary, chaos whispers possibilities, preys on regrets, and seduces with forbidden knowledge. It promises power, enlightenment, even freedom, yet every gift carries a price the mortal mind cannot fathom. Those who fall do not merely die. They are transformed, reshaped into instruments of its will. The chaos-tainted carry no banner, no chapter heraldry, only the mark of the mind corrupted. The Space Marines are the antithesis of this. They are warriors forged to resist, genetically and spiritually designed to confront the alien, the heretic, and the demon. Yet even they are not immune. The Primarchs, those paragons of power, succumbed. Horus, once the favored son, became the harbinger of a war that shattered the galaxy. He was seduced not through force, but through understanding, through revelation, through the echo of his own ambition mirrored in the warp. The lesson is simple. Chaos does not need to break you from without. It merely offers the reflection of what lies within. Cities burned, billions died, and yet the destruction was not random. It was precise, deliberate, and terrifyingly personal. Horus did not simply seek conquest. He sought to redefine reality itself, to remake the galaxy in a reflection of chaos and ambition, unchallenged. The loyalists were few. Isolated, often unaware of the scale of betrayal until too late. Even the Emperor, a being of unmatched power, was forced into decisions that would haunt the Imperium for millennia. His victory, though eventual, was Pyrrhic. Horus was defeated, but the cost was incalculable. The galaxy left scarred, the Space Marine legions shattered, and trust between brothers irreparably broken. It is in this crucible that the Imperium learned a lesson written in fire and blood. Vigilance is eternal, loyalty is fragile, and power is both a tool and a weapon against the wielder. The heresy did not end with Horus' death. Its echoes continue to ripple through every battle, every conflict, every whisper of rebellion and treachery. The Horus heresy was not merely a war. It was the collapse of potential, the shattering of hope, and the revelation that even the greatest of beings can be undone by the reflection of themselves. It showed that the galaxy does not bend for ideals. It bends for consequence. And it teaches the living in every age that survival is measured not by glory, but by the ability to endure when the future itself falls apart. The galaxy awoke from the fires of the Horus heresy to a new reality, one defined not by expansion, not by the unity of humanity, but by survival. Progress had died, not with a bang, but in a slow, inexorable collapse. Worlds that once hummed with industry, art, and discovery fell into silence. Knowledge was no longer a treasure. It was a liability. Innovation became suspect, for every breakthrough carried the shadow of chaos, every invention a potential vector for ruin. The Imperium of Man was born from necessity, forged in the crucible of betrayal and blood. The Emperor, triumphant yet diminished, assumed a throne that was both literal and symbolic, a throne that demanded eternal vigilance and unending sacrifice. From Terra's spires to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, humanity was stitched together not through inspiration, but through law, coercion, and fear. The bureaucracies of the Adeptus Terra rose as walls between chaos and order, creating a civilization that functioned like a machine, precise and unfeeling. The concept of progress became dangerous. Scientific exploration was measured against the risk of heresy. Art, philosophy, and culture were constrained under dogma and doctrine. Humanity's reach was vast, but its grasp was cautious, crippled by a need for survival above all else. Curiosity was monitored, and knowledge compartmentalized. The galaxy was a battlefield where understanding itself could be a weapon, and every mind a potential threat. The birth of the Imperium was not heralded with banners or songs. It was marked by decrees, edicts, and the imposition of order across star systems left in chaos. Loyalist legions that survived the heresy were broken into smaller chapters, their cohesion shattered, their traditions diluted to prevent the rise of another Horus. The Emperor's vision of a united humanity endured only in fragments, preserved through structure and ritual, not through inspiration or idealism. The Mechanicus claimed dominion over technology, transforming knowledge into doctrine. Innovation became worship, discovery became dogma. Machines, once tools of progress, were enshrined as sacred artifacts, their function inseparable from ritual. The line between faith and operation blurred until questioning was sacrilege, and ignorance became the shield against corruption. This was a galaxy reborn in fear. The lessons of the Horus heresy burned into every mind. Trust too deeply and betrayal consumes. Advance too far and the shadows strike. Humanity survived, yes, but it was a survival stripped of hope. Every star system became a fortress, every ship a weapon, every citizen a cog in an empire that prized obedience over freedom, function over meaning. And in this impermanent eternity, the Imperium became what it was meant to be. A civilization suspended between life and an annihilation, a monument to what must endure, not what should flourish. The death of progress was the birth of vigilance. The galaxy no longer waited for humanity to ascend. It demanded only that it endure. The Imperium's rise was not celebrated. It was assumed. Survival became the metric of success. Obedience the currency of power. It sacrificed the cost of every breath. From the ashes of ambition, from the ruins of hope, the Imperium stood, a galaxy-wide testament to humanity's greatest strength and most damning weakness, its capacity to endure at any cost. The Imperium of Man is alive, but only just. It breathes, it moves, it enforces its will, but beneath that motion lies fragility. Every planet is a patchwork of loyalty and fear, every fleet a fragile thread connecting a civilization teetering on collapse. Humanity's dominion stretches across 1,000,000 worlds, yet the weight of its own bureaucracy bends the spine of the galaxy itself. Progress is measured not in discovery, but in survival metrics. Every star system is audited, every leader scrutinized, every citizen cataloged. Life in the Imperium is defined by rules, not morality. Obedience is survival, faith is law. Innovation is rare, permitted only when necessity demands it. The Mechanicus enforces this doctrine with reverence and rigidity. They guard knowledge not to enlighten, but to prevent catastrophe. A single misused device, a single rogue thought can ripple across sectors, triggering wars that consume entire worlds. The Imperium's heart is a machine of vigilance, and humanity is but a component within its gears. Everyday existence is a test of endurance. Supply chains stretch across light years, threatened by pirates, Xenos, and the warp itself. Citizens toil under the shadow of Imperium-sanctioned punishment, yet many do not know why they obey. They only know that defiance is fatal. Life is regimented, faith mandatory, hope discouraged. Individuality is a luxury few can afford. Humanity's survival depends on conformity, and conformity demands sacrifice. He embodies the ideal of humanity, yet the actual man is long gone, a husk maintained in the golden throne. His body is a machine, his mind a well of infinite strategy, his presence a constant reminder of the price of survival. Soldiers kneel before him not for comfort but to anchor themselves in purpose. Citizens obey him not for inspiration but to avoid extinction. The Emperor does not act to reward loyalty. He acts to ensure it exists at all. Faith is a weapon wielded against doubt. In the clergy, it is a discipline. In the battlefield, it is a shield. In the quarters of power, it is leverage. Entire worlds are governed by the belief that survival and worship are inseparable. Heretics are purged with the same cold efficiency applied to Xenos threats. Doubt invites not only personal ruin, but the collapse of entire sectors. Every act of faith is a safeguard against chaos, both within and without. And yet, even in devotion, there is tragedy. The Imperium is built upon fear, but fear erodes the human spirit. Faith becomes rote, prayer becomes habit, and obedience replaces conviction. Soldiers fight not because they believe, but because the alternative is death. Citizens labor not because of hope, but because punishment is immediate and visible. The God Emperor is venerated, yet his true presence is unknowable. He is more symbol than man, more idea than flesh, and the Imperium clings to him as a lifeline. Though he offers no comfort, only continuity. Faith, fear, and the God Emperor form a triad that sustains the Imperium. Remove one, and the fragile construct collapses. Soldiers would lose purpose, citizens would revolt, worlds would fall, chaos would spread unchecked. Yet all three exist in constant tension. Faith inspires, fear controls, and the Emperor oversees. They are mutually dependent, and humanity teeters always on the edge between devotion and despair. Every battle fought in the Emperor's name reinforces this system. Every purge, every crusade, every prayer, every sacrificial act strengthens the lattice of obedience. Humanity survives because it fears what comes if it does not. Humanity endures because it worships an ideal too vast to comprehend. And in the quiet moments between war and vigilance, the Imperium whispers its greatest secret. Survival demands devotion, and devotion demands sacrifice. Not of life alone, but of will, of identity, of hope. The God Emperor does not comfort. He does not forgive. He only ensures that humanity persists in a galaxy that does not care for mercy. In that persistence is faith made manifest, fear made tangible, control made eternal. The galaxy does not pause. It does not wait. It does not forgive. Humanity is an intruder in a cosmos older, darker, and more indifferent than any mind can comprehend. Every star holds life. Every world hides ambition. Every species harbors intent, and none of them are inclined to tolerate the Imperium. Xenos exist not as myths, but as inevitabilities. They do not negotiate, they do not repent, and they do not forget. Tyrannids descend like storms made of hunger. They are neither army nor swarm. They are a process, a calculus of consumption that reduces worlds to biomass. Their advance is silent, relentless, unstoppable. When the Death Watch engages them, it is not a battle, it is containment. The Tyrannid is not merely an enemy, it is a reflection of the universe's indifference. It consumes without reason, without mercy, without pause. Humanity fights not to win, but to survive a probability that does not favor life. The Necrons move like echoes of a forgotten past, their metal bones impervious to fear, their minds guided by strategies older than stars. Immortality does not grant morality, it grants patience. Every Necron tomb world is a trap set across millennia. They do not seek conquest, they reclaim what they believe is theirs. To fight them is to engage a mind that perceives time as an instrument of inevitability. You cannot outlast them. You can only delay them. The Eldari are elegance wrapped in cruelty, sophistication cloaked in predation. They play with the fates of civilizations as if they were toys, manipulating, deceiving, punishing, all to preserve their own survival. Their victories are precise, surgical, and devastating. Their defeats are instructive. Every encounter leaves humanity a little more uncertain of its place, a little more fragile against the currents of a galaxy that refuses to bend to human will. Orcs exist as chaos made flesh, a universal constant of violence and unpredictability. They do not follow plans. They are plans themselves. Their sheer numbers, their ingenuity in destruction, and their mindless joy in war create a tapestry of perpetual threat. Every orc incursion is a lesson in improvisation and brutality. Humanity must adapt or die, often while the universe laughs at the futility of order. Then there are the countless species humanity has not yet named, each a problem, each a danger, each a mirror to what the Imperium fears in itself. Intelligence not governed by human morality, morality not encoded in obedience, survival not reliant on worship, all of it a challenge to humanity's assumption that the galaxy can be tamed. Each Xenos species a reminder. Humanity's dominion is temporary, conditional, and contested at every turn. The Death Watch does not engage in diplomacy. It does not parley. Its mandate is extinction prevention through preemption. Every world lost, every species underestimated, is a threat to the Imperium's fragile stability. The kill teams operate as surgeons, striking precisely where evolution and malevolence intersect, leaving no margin for miscalculation. Every encounter is a lesson in ruthlessness, a test of discipline, a rehearsal for survival. Understanding the Xenos is not an academic exercise. It is a necessity. Every biological quirk, every tactical instinct, every cultural logic is memorized, categorized, and weaponized. The galaxy does not allow ignorance. The alien teaches, the alien observes, and the alien waits. And humanity, if it survives at all, survives because it learned to anticipate the alien before the alien anticipates it. And in this, the Death Watch finds its purpose. It exists not to conquer, not to expand, not to glorify, but to maintain a fragile equilibrium between humanity and the countless intelligences that would see it erased. Its victories are silent. Its casualties are unremarked. Its existence is known only to those who command it, and to the enemies who survive just long enough to fear it. The Imperium survives because it watches, because it strikes, because it understands that the galaxy isn't different, and in that understanding there is no triumph, only relentless, calculated endurance. Humanity's survival is not a right, it is a challenge, daily, eternal, and unyielding. War is not an anomaly in the galaxy. War is not a series of unfortunate events. War is the system. It is the engine that powers civilization, the currency by which survival is measured, and the only truth the cosmos respects. To the Imperium, conflict is inevitable. To the Death Watch, it is perpetual. The galaxy does not reward peace. It punishes hesitation. Every delay invites the alien. Every pause enables heresy. Every lapse creates vulnerability. You begin to see patterns in the endless tide. Worlds rise only to fall. Empires surge only to collapse. Entire civilizations vanish without fanfare, leaving nothing but ghost coordinates on long-forgotten charts. Humanity exists not because it is triumphant, but because it moves faster, strikes harder, and endures longer than those who would consume it. There is no morality in this calculus, only effectiveness. The machinery of war is everywhere. Administratum orders flow like blood, maintaining the supply of arms, troops, and intelligence. The Adeptus Mechanicus ensures that technology marches forward even when it cannot be understood. The Sisters of Battle enforce discipline where faith falters. The Astra Militarum provides a human shield across countless battlefronts. Every part is a gear in the machine of survival. In the Death Watch, it is the precision instrument, deployed only when calculation dictates its necessity. Endless war is not chaos. It is a structure. The galaxy's conflicts are a lattice of cause and effect. A network where every decision, every engagement, every annihilation has ripple effects spanning light years and centuries. The alien, the heretic, the traitor, all are nodes in this system, and every strike, every purge, every suppression is a correction, a minor adjustment in an unfathomable mechanism. The Imperium does not seek peace. Peace is a liability. It breeds complacency, encourages ambition, and allows the galaxy's predators to learn and adapt. Stability is tolerated only as long as it does not compromise survival. And so humanity fights, not because it desires war, but because war is the only condition under which survival is possible. You begin to understand the weight of inevitability. No victory is permanent. No defeat is total. Every campaign concludes not with resolution, but with readiness for the next confrontation. The galaxy cycles endlessly, and humanity's survival depends not on diplomacy, not on morality, but on perpetual vigilance. Even within the Death Watch, you perceive the system at work. Every kill team rotation, every deployment, every engagement is optimized to maintain this equilibrium. There is no fatigue, no distraction, no indulgence. The mission is continuity. The goal is survival, and all who serve understand this, even if they do not speak it aloud. Endless war is not failure. It is the very design of the universe. To see it as catastrophe is to misunderstand the rule. Survival is the measure of success, not peace. Function is the measure of virtue, not mercy. The galaxy does not celebrate restraint. It rewards efficiency, endurance, and the ability to strike before the next threat becomes inevitable. And so when you enter a battlefield, you understand that every shot fired, Every strategy employed, every life lost or spared is part of a larger pattern you cannot hope to see in full. You act not for glory, not for recognition, but because the system demands it. The Death Watch is the tip of this inexorable machine, cutting precisely where it must to maintain humanity's place, however tenuous, in an uncaring cosmos. You realize then that this endless war is not a series of failures. It is the Imperium's lifeblood. Without it, survival is impossible. Without it, humanity ceases to exist. You are both participant and observer, instrument and witness, soldier and executor of inevitability. And within the structure there is clarity, even if it is cold and unforgiving. Survival depends on perpetuity, not resolution. Heroism is a story told to living. It is a comfort for those who watch from safety, a narrative spun to mask the cruelty of survival. In the galaxy, in the unending war, heroes do not exist. They are illusions constructed from the fleeting acts of courage that cannot change the outcome, acts praised only because someone needed meaning in the endless carnage. You see it in the Death Watch. Kill teams deploy not for glory, but for necessity. A single Marine can prevent the annihilation of a planet, yet no hymn is sung in their honor. No statue rises. No bards immortalize their sacrifice. They survive not because they are exceptional, but because the system tolerates efficiency, endurance, and precision. Survival itself is the only accolade that matters, and it is silent. Every battlefield reinforces this truth. Acts of bravery are measured not in applause but in survival metrics. Choices are calculated, not valorous. Risk is assessed, not romanticized, and those who fall are remembered only as statistics, removed from narrative, their lives consumed by the machinery of war. There is no time to honor, there is no space for myth, there is only duty. The galaxy is indifferent to heroism. Planets burn, civilizations vanish. Entire species are excised because containment is inefficient, because preemption is essential. The Death Watch exists not to inspire. It exists to act where hope is insufficient. In such a universe, the concept of a hero is an indulgence, a fiction, a liability. You learn this slowly, and then it becomes instinct. Do not act for recognition. Do not hesitate for pride. Do not consider the personal cost. Every decision, every action, every strike is measured against survival, not morality. You are a tool, a weapon honed for necessity, not celebration. And in that realization, you lose something essential. The ability to hope that heroism exists beyond your function. Persists. Even the Emperor's gaze is distant here. It does not reward courage. It does not comfort the fallen. It merely observes, silent, eternal, detached. You understand that service is not sacred because it is glorified. It is sacred because it preserves existence, even if none will ever know it. And as the years pass, the illusion of heroes dissolves. You witness entire chapters shattered by the Xenos, entire fleets annihilated, and yet the galaxy persists. Victory is not claimed. It is inherited by the next iteration of the machine. There is no legend, only survival. There is no honor, only duty. There are no heroes left, only instruments of inevitability, moving through the void with unrelenting precision. You recognize the truth. The story is not about the individual. It is about the system. It is about the long chain of action and consequence that spans centuries. The heroic image is comforting to civilians, to the masses who sleep under the protection of countless unseen warriors. But for those who serve, for those who endure, the lesson is clear. Heroism is irrelevant. Only action, only impact, only survival matters. In the Death Watch, every Marine embodies this reality. They are not celebrated. They are not remembered. They are the invisible fulcrums upon which the galaxy balances. And you now understand that the weight of survival is heavier than the allure of glory. To hope for recognition is to invite distraction. To seek heroism is to court death. You are no longer a hero. You are something else, something necessary, something efficient, something the galaxy cannot afford to question. And in that absence of myth and that erasure of glory, there is clarity. There are no heroes left, only executioners, only guardians. Only the long, silent, unbroken chain of those who endure so that life, fragile and fleeting, might continue. The galaxy is vast, but it is not infinite. It is a place of constant tension, a crucible where civilizations rise and fall in the blink of a stellar cycle. And yet, despite unending annihilation, despite the horrors that consume entire sectors, Warhammer 40K endures, not as a tale of hope, not as a story of heroes, but as a testament to survival against impossible odds. you begin to understand why. It is not the technology, though the fleets and weapons are unmatched. It is not the power of the Emperor, though his will shapes empires. It is the story itself, the brutal, unflinching reflection of a universe where compromise is weakness and mercy is inefficiency. It is a narrative that refuses comfort, a world where every action carries consequence, and every choice is measured in the balance of life and extinction. Mortality, fragility, and the inevitability of loss are constants here. Yet, paradoxically, it is these constants that provide continuity. They create a framework through which readers, players, and viewers can navigate the infinite chaos. Warhammer 40K endures because it mirrors the fundamental truths of existence. Life is precarious, conflict is inevitable, and survival is never guaranteed. The Imperium persists, not because it is just or wise, but because it is unyielding. Humanity endures, not because it is virtuous, but because it is adaptable in its cruelty, relentless in its purpose, and unwavering in its devotion to survival at any cost. Every planet fortified, every threat neutralized, every kill team deployed reinforces the narrative. Persistence is its own reward. The galaxy forgets individual deeds, but the machinery of survival remembers. And in that remembering, the story continues. Chaos whispers Xenos plot and the void waits. Yet Warhammer 40K endures because it captures something primal. The eternal struggle between entropy and order, between fear and resolve, between extinction and defiance. It is not comforting. It is not inspiring in the traditional sense. It is terrifying. It is profound. It is relentless. And the audience, drawn to the drama, the scale, the existential tension, cannot turn away. This is why the stories resonate. They do not offer neat conclusions or triumphant victories. They offer a mirror of reality turned up to its most extreme form. A universe where every action matters, where consequence is immediate and uncompromising, and where the cost of survival is never abstract. Each campaign, each war, each mission becomes a meditation on perseverance, on endurance, and on the choices that define civilizations. And perhaps that is the final truth. Warhammer 40K endures because it respects complexity. It refuses to simplify morality, to reduce sacrifice to rhetoric, or to transform suffering into spectacle. Every story, every battle, every act of violence is weighted, meaningful, and irrevocable. It is a universe that challenges, that confronts, that immerses. And in doing so, it commands attention, loyalty, and obsession. You realize slowly that the longevity of Warhammer 40K is not a product of heroes, or armies, or even the Emperor himself. It is a product of truth, brutal, unyielding, and eternal. The galaxy may crumble, empires may fall, civilizations may vanish, but the narrative persists, carried forward by the unbroken chain of those who endure, the unflinching clarity of the system, and the undeniable magnetism of a universe that refuses to lie. There is no light that reaches unchallenged, no moment of peace that does not carry shadow. The galaxy is a living testament to the inevitability of conflict, where every world is a battlefield, every decision a gamble, and every life a candle flickering against the void. You stand at the edge of understanding. You have traced the arcs of empires, the rise and fall of primarchs, the endless churn of chaos and Xenos alike. You have seen the cost of survival writ across the faces of space marines, in the ruins of civilizations, and in the silence that follows annihilation. You know that heroism is not celebrated here. It is measured in continuity, in the preservation of life through uncompromising violence. And yet within this grim darkness, there is purpose. Not the comforting warmth of hope, nor the triumphant clarity of victory, but a disciplined, exacting purpose that sustains the Imperium and the story itself. It is in this clarity that the galaxy finds order amidst entropy, strategy amidst chaos, and identity amidst the machinery of war. Every battle, every extermination, every sacrifice is a note in an unending symphony. The music is discordant, violent, and relentless, but it endures, and those who witness it, those who comprehend the full scale of what must be done, are changed irrevocably. They carry knowledge too sharp to hold lightly, memories too heavy to share, and understanding too dangerous to ignore. Warhammer 40K is more than a universe. It is a mirror, reflecting the extremities of ambition, survival, and morality. It is a warning as much as it is a story. It teaches that power without vigilance corrupts, that mercy without strategy kills, and that ignorance is the deadliest enemy of all. In this reflection, you see the truth of humanity itself, fragile, flawed, and endlessly tenacious. You see the inevitability of conflict, the futility of sentiment, and the necessity of action. And you understand why the story persists, generation after generation, decade after decade, century after century. It survives because it resonates, because it challenges, because it mirrors the deepest fears and the most unyielding strengths of those who dare to confront it. And finally, you realize this. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is no salvation, no reprieve, no end. There is only vigilance, only endurance, only the relentless march of time and war. The galaxy does not care for hope. It does not care for heroes. It cares for survival. And those who understand this, who carry the weight of its truth, are the last line between extinction and continuation. This is the final reflection. The universe is unyielding. Chaos waits. Xenos plot. Humanity perseveres, not because it is righteous, but because it refuses to yield. And you, whether as witness, participant, or chronicler, are left with the knowledge that in this universe, existence itself is an act of defiance. There is no comfort in this truth. There is only understanding, only clarity, only the unflinching, unending march of the Imperium through darkness. The story does not end. It cannot. It endures. And so must you.